بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. المحاضرة الأولى في هذا السيشن بالعنوان Nutritional Facts About Diabetes، هيلقيها الأستاذ الدكتور عبد الوهاب، أستاذ البطنة والإندوكرينولوجي في جامعة المنيا.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. and Lady Chairman. First, there is an announcement about the group photo. The group photo will be taken just before lunch. Today, I'm going to speak about some nutritional fact about diabetes. Through the next 25 to 30 minutes, I'm going to have an introductory and short notes about the goals and principles of medical nutrition, what the role of weight management, what are the healthy eating patterns, and how to plan for diabetic meal, and we'll have a quick look to the Egyptian meal and the take-home messages. Just before we start, I want to ask the audience a question. Please, how many of you refer his or her patient to a dietitian? So only for the Egyptian, only 3 refer their patient to a dietitian. How many of you knew there is a dietitian interested in diabetes in his hospital or her hospital or in his town? Only a minority. Okay. How many of you give his patient just a piece of paper written with instruction or a pamphlet? A little bit more. The rest did nothing. So we have to stress that we are lacking an integral part of treatment of diabetes. We cannot stay like this. We have to develop the sense of referring patient to a dietitian and try to increase the awareness of the patient and even the physician about the role of dietitian in the diabetes health team care. As we said before, nutrition therapy has an integral role in the overall diabetes management. It is not one size that fits all, that the eating pattern or the meal should be individualized. Each person with diabetes should be actively engaged in education, self-management, and he has to sit with his healthcare provider and to put a treatment plan, and with his dietitian to develop an individual eating plan. And as we said before, medical nutrition service should be delivered by a dietitian. If medical nutrition therapy delivered by a dietitian, it could reduce up to 1% of A1C in people with type 1 and up to 2% of people with type 2%. However, each member in the diabetes health team should be knowledgeable or have to know the principles of medical nutrition therapy. The Americans, in their position statement published at year 2014, they said that we should emphasize on health eating patterns containing nutrient-dense, high-quality food, less focusing on specific nutrients. Among the healthy diets we are going to discuss, the Mediterranean, the DASH or the dietary approach to stop hypertension, and the plant-based diet. What are the goals of medical nutrition therapy in diabetes? First, goals in prevention and goals in treatment. In prevention, there is a primary prevention that we use the medical nutrition therapy to retard or decrease the progress of a pre-diabetics and high-risk patient to develop diabetes. The second prevention, we use medical nutrition intervention to help to achieve the blood glucose and lipid and hypertension targets. The tertiary prevention, we use nutrition as a tool to manage complications of diabetes. The classical example, a patient who has advanced chronic kidney disease, we have to decrease his protein portion in his diet. As we said before, we need a healthful eating pattern in order to improve all health, specifically weight goals, maintain glycemic control and blood pressure control and lipid goals, and to prevent complication. However, this should be taken in consideration the personal and cultural preferences, his health literacy, especially here in Egypt, how he could access healthful food, what if he is willing or she is willing to change her behavior in eating, and if there is any barrier to change this behavior. Taking into consideration, we should do this with keeping the pleasure of eating. And finally, we should provide the patient with the practical tool for developing a healthy eating pattern. Now we'll look to weight management. Weight reduction, whether in type 1 or type 2, have been important in management of diabetes. There is strong and consistent evidence that even the modest persistent weight loss can delay the progression from diabetes from pre-diabetes to type 2 diabetes. At least 5% of the initial body weight have been shown to improve glycemic control and reduce the needs for medication in type 2. Again, with weight management, we have to sustain weight management. Weight management should be sustained. However, this is challenging. How can we have sustained weight loss? First, we achieve an energy deficit or calorie deficit of 500 to 750 calories per day energy deficit, or to provide 1200 to 1500 kilocalorie or calorie per day for women, and 1500 to 1800 calories for men. And as we said before, that 5% reduction is very important, but the 70% reduction of weight is the optimal. What are the eating patterns? I'm talking about the healthy eating patterns. The Mediterranean, the vegetarian, the low carb, the low fat, and finally the DASH. The Mediterranean include plant food, mainly fruits, vegetables, breads, cereals, beans, nuts, many processed fresh food. They use the fruits as the usual dessert. They don't consume a lot of honey and concentrated sugar. Olive oil is the principal dietary fat. They eat in moderation dairy products like yogurt and cheese, have less than 4 eggs per week. They seldomly consume red meat, and if they consume it, they use it in small amounts, and they use wine in moderation. The vegetarian is divided into the vegan, this is diet derived from plant source, no ever animal or animal-derived food. The lacto-vegetarian, this is the vegan plus milk and dairy products. The lacto-ovo-vegetarian, this is including eggs in addition to the previous one. This vegetarian diet decreases cholesterol and saturated fat, decreases intake of cholesterol and saturated fat. It includes vegetables, fruits, whole grains, nuts, and fiber. The low fat is defined as a total fat intake less than 30% and saturated fat intake less than 10% of the total caloric intake. The low carb diet, either a very low carb diet, this is 20 to 70 grams per day of carb, or moderately low carb, less than 40% of the total caloric intake. It includes a high protein content from animal source, oil, butter, low carb content vegetable like broccoli, cucumber, green leaves, and sugar containing foods and grains like pasta, rice, and bread are generally avoided. The DASH is the dietary approach to stop hypertension. It emphasizes fruits, vegetables, low-fat dairy products, their products, whole grains, poultry, fish, nuts, reduced saturated fat, red meat, sugar-containing beverage, and sodium content. What are the properties of that three patterns? What are the benefits we took from this? For the vegetarian, it have an A1C reduction effect, have an LDL cholesterol reduction effect, increasing HDL cholesterol effect, and unfortunately, because we know that vitamin B12 comes mainly from animal source, this may be accompanied by vitamin B12 deficiency. For the Mediterranean, it has a good effect on A1C and blood pressure, and inflammatory markers like CRP. It decreased total cholesterol, it decreased HDL cholesterol, and decreased total cholesterol HDL cholesterol ratio. It decreased triglycerides also. The DASH have the effect on decreasing A1C, decrease weight, decrease blood pressure, decrease inflammatory markers like CRP, decrease LDL cholesterol, and increase HDL cholesterol. The most important issue is how to plan a meal for a diabetic patient. We have to take in consideration 3 points. First, the time of the meal in relation to the patient lifestyle. We have different lifestyles. We have different hours of work. Just for today, for example, you eat at 8 o'clock in the morning and you are going to eat your next meal at 6 or maybe late. The second one, how much to eat. For type 1 diabetes, you have either a 35 calorie, or it is a 35 calorie per kilogram per day. And for type 2 diabetes, as already said, it is from 1200 to 1500 for women, and from 1500 to 1800 for men, depending on the age, depending on initial body weight, and what is the daily exercise. What to eat? The previous statements come from the, as I said before, from the American Diabetes Association recommendation or position statement published in 2014. However, the Canadian have their own, published 1 year earlier, the 2013 Canadian guidelines for diabetes. These now are interested on putting a percentage for each component of each macronutrient. 45 to 60% of carb, 15 to 20% of protein, and 20 to 35% of fat to allow individualization. And their fat content should be less than 70% of saturated fats with limited intake of trans fatty acids. If we transfer this into grams, for a 2,000 calories day diet, he will eat, or she will eat, 225 carbohydrate to 300, for protein 75 to 100, for fat it's 44 to 78 grams per day. Back to the Americans, they say that carbohydrate intake from whole grains, vegetables, fruits, legumes, their products with emphasis on food higher in fiber, or those who have lower glycemic load should be advised. Sugary sweetened beverages should be avoided to control the weight and reduce the risk of cardiovascular disease. They should minimize the consumption of foods with added sugar, because they displace a healthier, more nutrient-dense food choice. For example, a piece of basbousa versus 2 or 3 pieces of, or 2 or 3 units of banana, for example. You see? Well, for people type 1 diabetes who have prescribed a flexible insulin regimen, like the basal bolus, like the basal plus regimen, you should educate the patient about carbohydrate counting, and in some conditions, fat and protein gram estimation should be determined to determine the mealtime insulin and dosing, so you can improve your glycemic control. For individuals with fixed insulin dosing, like split dose. This was 2/3 in the morning and 1/3 at the night, or 50% in the morning and 50% at the night. You have to choose a consistent pattern of carbohydrate intake with respect to time and amount, because this can result in improved glycemic control, and it could reduce the risk of hypoglycemia. You have to, if you choose to do the carbohydrate counting by yourself, you have to know two facts: what we call insulin carbohydrate ratio. Usually it's 1 unit per 15 gram. And insulin sensitivity factor, it is the 1800 divided by the total daily dose needed by the patient. For example, if he took 60 units per day from insulin, his insulin sensitivity factor is 30 milligrams per blood glucose level for just 1 unit. The consumption of low glycemic index reduced A1C by 0.4% compared to high glycemic index food. But the excessive fiber intake in this low glycemic index carbohydrate can cause bloating and have some effect as a restrictive diet. The low glycemic index food include whole grains, nuts, legumes, and fruits and vegetables. This is our examples of low glycemic index. The glycemic index is divided into up to 55, it's a low one. From 56 to 70 is at an intermediate one, and if it is above 70, it is a high one. For proteins, there is no, or the evidence is inconclusive for the ideal protein intake in a patient without diabetic kidney disease. And it is not recommended to reduce protein intake in patients with micro or macroalbuminuria. The fats, data on ideal total dietary fat content for people with diabetes are limited or inconclusive. We emphasize on Mediterranean style diet rich in monounsaturated fatty acids, and may improve, as it may improve glucose metabolism and lower cardiovascular risk. Eating food rich in long chain V3 fatty acids such as fatty fish or nuts and seeds is recommended, but supplementation of this V3 dietary fats is not advised. For micronutrients, there is no need to supplement vitamins or minerals or herbs or spice because it has no beneficial effect, except if there is a clinical evidence of deficiency. There are some safety concerns about antioxidants, the vitamin E and vitamin C and carotene. For those who drink alcohol, they should drink alcohol in moderation. 1 cup for the lady and 1 drink for the 2 drinks for the gentleman. And if you are going to use alcohol while are you taking medication, you should be aware about the hypoglycemic effect of alcohol, which is augmented hypoglycemic effect of insulin and of secretagogues. For dietary fibers, patients have the usual intake of the general population, 25 grams per day for the adult women and 38 grams per day for the adult men. However, there is a study stated that 0.3% reduction of A1C if you have intake of fiber more than 50 grams per day. However, short duration of this study and a small sample size are limitation. A beneficial effect of high fiber diet on cholesterol and the blood pressure is observed in another study. For fructose, the fructose exists in 2 forms. The free fructose, that is one present in fruits, and the fructose that present in syrup and whatever you see from the beverages, sweetened beverages. The good one is the free fructose that is present in fruits. It has a better glycemic control compared to isocaloric intake of sucrose or starch, and it is not likely to have a detrimental effect on triglycerides, but it should be limited to less than 12% of the total caloric intake. For sodium, just to 2300 of milligrams compared to 110 grams of Professor Lassik's case. It's a lot of salt, of course. For those with hypertension, you have to restrict more the sodium intake. Non-nutritive sweeteners are safe. They have the potential to reduce overall caloric intake. You have to use them within the recommended daily allowances. For the pregnant women, caloric intake should take in consideration the height, the pre-gravid weight, the physical activity, and even the number of fetuses. Increase the caloric intake about 300 calories per day is one way. And the another one is to give a 30 calories per kg per day per ideal body weight. And the first trimester, the second trimester, increase it to 36 calories per day, per kg per day, and in the third trimester, increase it to 38 grams per day. You have to track the body weight in conjunction with the gynecologist. Now, the look to the Egyptian meal. Another question to the audience. How many of you eat the classical عيش بلدي? More than 3 breads per day? More than 2? ما فيش حد? Okay. How many of you eat beans? Stewed beans, بصارة, طعمية? More than 3 times per week. We have a pattern here, okay? How many of you eat rice as a koshari, or a mahshi, or a mumbar, or just rice? More than 3 times a week? We have a pattern. We are bread eaters. I always travel with Professor Ashraf Atiyah. He's on the stage now. And we agree almost on everything. We agree to what lecture we're going to attend. We agree to what places we are going to go. We agree to what things to buy for our families, except for one thing. We disagree. I want to take the last piece of bread in the basket, and he always took it. So we are a nation that consume a lot of bread. Every patient, I give him instructions about how to plan for his meal. He never complained about rice. He never complained about meal. He never complained about fruits or whatever. He always complained about bread. A half of bread, just half of bread is not enough. And thank you.
Thank you, my dear friend, Professor Amr Abdel Wahab, for this very elegant lecture, and hope to be applicable.
We have a problem here in Egypt. We don't have a dietitian specialized in medical nutrition for the diabetes. We have to build up this specialty in our medical community. We have to stress the media to give more and more consideration to this. Unfortunately, our patients look for their dietary planning from Shara Sharif and from, Shara Sharif, And from Chief Yerbini. Unfortunately, we have to look for this.
Want the questions to the end of the session because of the time. Okay. Next speak.
Okay.
Thank you, Dr. Amr.
Okay.
Next speaker will be